Hey y'all, this is 01 coming at you with another review, but I am doing something different. I'm also going to be taking the time to go and review at the request of friends of mine to do movies that I have seen with my friends, which I have a couple of them that have been lined up, like a few miniseries and or movies. I probably will call the miniseries one movies with friends because the miniseries that I've seen with my friends have been shot like films, so you can say they're like miniseries, mini movies. But I'll probably just call them that because that'll be my title because I just don't want to say like series of friends or anything like that. So I'll keep it to the movies. But if I tell you it's a series that I'm reviewing, it's a series. And if it's a movie, it's a movie. This time it is a movie, and we're going through. I don't have the cover for it. I want to own this movie, and if you can't own it, I want to get it. And I love it because of the take on it. But I saw a movie with my friend, I think it's about maybe 2-3 months back now. I'm not too sure. But it's a movie called The Highwaymen, done in 2019. It was a Netflix movie directed by John Lee. I think it's John Lee Hancock. Let me check here. This is why I'm glad I have this. Yeah, John Lee Hancock, who directed it, was the executive producer, along with Woody Harrelson and Kevin Costner, who basically did a movie about Bonnie and Clyde. Have Bonnie and Clyde shown in not such a flattering light, which I actually enjoyed. I won't go through the comment section because I am using RottenTomatoes.com, trademark again, to do this thing, but I will basically say I find it funny how the critic consensus on this is very low at 59%, and the fan reaction to this is a huge whopping 73 or 79%, one of the two. And I mean, I love that. I don't know why critics hated it, but I'll get into that just a little bit as I'm explaining the movie. But this movie deals with, Bonnie and Clyde, as, it opens up in a creepy vein as they're, getting, guys of theirs out of prison. What happens is, they're in Texas. They've been knowing for ever since they accidentally killed that one bank teller and cop. They didn't mean to kill him, it just happened, but it seemed like they developed a taste for killing people and knew the cops were going to be coming after them. And, yes, you want to stay with law enforcement, and yeah, Bonnie and Clyde were looked at as heroes, robbing banks, taking things from people, because, as you guys know, this is the Great Depression era, and this is why my friend really wanted me to see this, because you really got to see a good film with the opposite telling of Bonnie and Clyde, because the one with Warren Beatty and Faye Dunaway, and I know there was that one they did on, HBO Max, I think, it has them depicted as heroes, like people who, maybe did get a little over their heads, not knowing what they could do, and then, the accidents happen, and then they're being chased by ruthless cops. Because let's face it, in the Faye Dunaway and Warren Beatty version, they were looked at, Frank Amer and the cops were looked at as vicious, evil people. What I like about this one, The Highwaymen, is Kevin Costner, who plays Frank Amer, and Woody Harrelson, who plays Manny Galt, is, they're tasked with tracking down Bonnie and Clyde, who is now starting to kill cops. They just also not raided, but they, but Bonnie used her machine gun at the beginning part of the movie, the Tommy gun, to basically alert the people they were breaking out of prison that they were there. And, these guys sort of jump the guards and they break out of prison. And these guys go about doing their robbing sprees and sadly, going around and killing cops. Because you see these creepy scenes in the movie where Thomas Newman, who does the score for this film, by the way, goes along, the score builds, and it's like, sort of like that, being very creepy and melodical, and just this evil music playing as Bonnie and Clyde at times, like them and their gang, shoot up the cops with the Tommy gun, and you have Bonnie come up and shoot the cops right in the face if they're still alive, point blank range with her shotgun, which to me, when I saw this in this movie, I told my friend, you know, that's fucking brutal. I can't believe she did stuff like that. And, you know, I mean, in many ways, she did do stuff like that when she killed him. And, you know, I never understood when she did why it was so brutal. But then again, you could say it was them taking it to the authorities, showing them that they're the one in charge, that the authorities are not going to stop them, not the banks, not the cops, what have you. But, you know, this stuff starts growing out of control. And the governor of Texas, Ma Ferguson, played greatly by Kathy Bates. And I'm not trying to pick one side or the other, but as my friend told me, and as you learn in the film, she is a Democrat who didn't want to, you know, have the Texas Rangers be brought back in, because I guess her council was saying, you know, maybe we can bring the Texas Rangers back, and she's like, no, we're not going to have that. They play fast and loose with the law. I'm not going to bring them back. And then there's a character who I think was her treasurer or secretary, but it's played by John Carroll Lynch. He plays a character of Lee Simmons, and he mentions to Ma Ferguson, Kathy Bates, why don't I get Frank Amer to come in, and maybe he can find some partners, and they can go and bring Bonnie and Clyde to justice, you know, arrest them, or if it gets really bad, kill them. You know, they can maybe end this whole thing before it gets worse. So, Ma Ferguson is reluctant. She says, you know, Amer played fast and loose with the law. I didn't like his record. So she's complaining. Simmons actually works up the courage to keep telling her, you know, this is what we need to do, or these people will keep going across the country, and this stuff will never end. They'll keep getting away with robbing banks, killing cops, possibly maybe even start to kill random civilians if they develop the taste for it. And Ma Ferguson, you know, agrees. So Simmons goes to Frank Amer's house, introduces the plan to Amer. You know, Amer's thinking, you know, this isn't a social visit. Simmons agrees it's not. And Frank Amer's like, okay, what do you want me to do? Lee Simmons mentions Bonnie and Clyde. You know, Frank Amer's thinking about it, saying he's retired. He sort of doesn't want to get involved. Frank Amer's wife, sorry, I know I'm saying Amer. I think it's Hamer. Frank Hamer's wife, Gladys Hamer, played by Kim Dickens, is saying, you know, no, you're not going to do this. You know, I don't want you involved. You get killed. You're too old, Frank. You know, don't worry about this. You're my husband. You know, let Lee Simmons find somebody else to take this place. Frank Hamer, you know, thinks about it. We see several scenes where he's trying to practice shooting. His aim's a little off, but then you see in like a couple scenes, he starts to get it back. He actually agrees to Simmons that he'll go after, you know, Bonnie and Clyde. What was her name again? Gladys Hamer, you know, reluctantly agrees with her husband. She lets him go. She's worried about him, but, you know, she just says, stay safe. You know, I know you're a former Texas Ranger, but you have to do what you have to do. Just bring these folks to justice. Come home to me. And, you know, Frank Hamer starts to go out and find some help. He finds one man he wanted to help him, and that is Woody Harrelson's character in Manny Galt. All of a sudden, though, Hamer doesn't look like he wants to use Galt, so he's there thinking about it, but then he leaves, and then Manny Galt sees that Frank Hamer was there. He actually goes out to him and says, you know, what are you doing? Do you need me for something? Frank Hamer explains, and he's like, you know, what, did you think I was a washout? Do you think I wouldn't help you? Come on, man, we're partners. We're best friends. I'll be there for you. And I forget the exact thing that Frank Hamer said, but I know this was like a pride thing with both Manny Galt and Frank Hamer, and, you know, Frank Hamer wanting to bring Bonnie and Clyde to justice, because you see it when he takes the job. He's like, yeah, you know, these criminals are fast and loose with the law. You know, they're breaking it. They're killing a lot of cops. We've got to end this, and Manny Galt is going to just back up Frank Hamer because it's his best friend, and, you know, they're the partners. I mean, it really gives a good partner-friendship mentality. The chemistry between Woody Harrelson and Kevin Costner is pitch perfect, I would say. I was telling my friend who I was watching this with that I loved the chemistry between them. It was a really good movie. And overall, I liked how this movie was, again, not presenting Bonnie and Clyde in the heroic way. Because, say what you want about Bonnie and Clyde, they still were committing, criminal acts. I mean, even if people didn't like banks during the Great Depression, they were still stealing lots of money, robbing banks all around the country, and now they were starting to kill people. So, they were developing quite the rap sheet. So, the whole movie just continues on with them finding them and, practicing with the weapons. Frank Hamer buys out a big gun store almost. Like, he takes all the weapons that he can get. Manny Gold and him are training with them. And they spend the rest of the movie trying to track down Bonnie and Clyde. Although they seem to be a step or two behind. More cops get killed. A lot of the cops who weren't there to witness these tragedies give Frank Hamer and Manny Galt a bad time. They're like mocking them, saying, "Well, this ain't your jurisdiction. They've gone way past Texas. You can't continue onward." And the other cops are not being very helpful. They run into civilians. The civilians give them trouble. The civilians, some of them know things. Some of them are reluctant to give Frank Hamer and Manny Galt information. So Manny Galt and Frank Hamer, have to get rough at times to get it out of them. There are actually a few civilians who come up and rat Bonnie and Clyde out, like, as they're concerned because, they keep coming here. They keep staying with us. We know that they're starting to get into dangerous things from what we've heard about the rumors. So, we'll help you guys. Although those ones are a little bit more reluctant than the people who are holding out. Like, one part, since this is movies with my friends, and I'll say it like this is why this isn't like a traditional review. I'm just talking about what this movie meant to me and why I liked watching it with my friend that I did. And what I loved was that I was telling my friend that I love the scene between Mr. Barrow and Frank Hamer. Because when Frank Hamer goes into Mr. Barrow's home or place of work, they're talking, and Mr. Barrow says, my son's a good person, he's only, taken from the banks, it's you guys, it's the cops and the government who've been chasing him, this never would have happened, this shouldn't have got as bad, this never would have happened if he stole if he would have left him alone after he stole the chicken or something like that, because he was saying, all my son Clyde did was steal a chicken, and you guys have been after him ever since. And I love how Frank Hamer, Kevin Costner just turns around and he's like, Mr. Barrow is played by William Sadler. So he's played by William Sadler. Great little role for William Sadler to be playing Mr. Barrow, which I absolutely love too. And he just looks right at Mr. Barrow and goes, "Mr. Barrow, did you ever think about in the first place why your son stole that chicken?" And I just love it because that line spoke volumes, and I was telling my friend that because it's like, yeah, it's like he stole a chicken, yes, but then it became more about the thrill, more about what else could he do, how far could he take this, and then then it led into the killings and everything he's currently doing right now. And it's like an addictive drug when you sometimes do things you just can't stop. I mean that's why I was telling my friend I love the premise of the film. I love how Bonnie and Clyde are not necessarily looked at as the heroes. They're killing cops. You feel bad for the cops and all these different types of things. And this is why I'll get into just like seeing what I poked around in the comment section on Rotten Tomatoes, probably without like reading too much of it. I mean, because it seems like a lot of the comments are positive, but I'll probably see why critics also gave this a huge negative, sadly, and why fans, I think, love this film. But, it went on, and, they're getting closer and closer. It eventually gets to the part at the end where, you have Frank Hamer and Manny Galt catching up to Bonnie and Clyde, and they're actually in the town they're staying in. I think it was Pennsylvania, if I'm not mistaken, that they were hiding out in Pennsylvania. I saw that. I hope that didn't freeze on you guys, because I really don't want to lose this here for you. But yeah, Manny Galt and them are hiding out in Pennsylvania. They're working with a bunch of cops. There's this awesome scene that I was also telling my friend that I liked where, they're talking about how, like Manny Galt and what Frank Hamer did, Galt's playing cards with these guys and he tells them a bit about their past, and you learn how it's this unsavory thing, and both he and Hamer have done things in the past that they regret, that actually gives the other cops pause and, are a little worried. And, as you can see, this builds to the infamous scene where, Clyde and Bonnie are on the highway driving together, and, they're basically there. All of a sudden, as you can imagine, both Frank Hamer, Manny Galt, and the other cops come out of nowhere, and I will say this, unlike the one with Warren Beatty and Faye Dunaway, and I believe even the one on HBO Max, the cops just don't come out of nowhere, and they don't just start shooting, because, Frank Hamer is not being portrayed as a villain here for once. Like, he's being portrayed as an understandable man who has to do whatever he can within the confines of the law, or even going above the law, to stop these folks. And, like, what happens is Frank Hamer aims the Tommy gun, as do the other cops, and he says, freeze. Bonnie and Clyde are actually scared by this. They hold hands for a brief moment at the sides, and then both their hands sort of fall on something. There's a thing where, you see the cops' perspective. The cops are thinking it's a Tommy gun, and then, you see what's actually in the car, and it was sandwiches that Bonnie and Clyde were eating as soon as they dropped their hands. But, the cops didn't know that, and given what Bonnie and Clyde have done, you couldn't really blame Manny Galt, Frank Hamer, and all the other cops for shooting as they did. And, they basically, in, the classic fashion, shoot up the car really bad. Basically, Bonnie and Clyde are turned into mincemeat, and they're killed. And I know some people will say, Zach, how could you say this type of thing? And it's like, well, look, given what they were doing, I even told my friend this, I couldn't blame Frank Hamer or Manny Galt or any of the other cops for doing that, because he didn't know if they had a gun in there or were going to stop shooting. I mean, any one of them could have been killed as well. It's like, it's one of those things where you take a chance. It isn't fun to know that they were defenseless, but again, do you want to take a chance in case they had a real gun? I mean, it's one of those things that I can understand why the cops did what they did in this context of the movie, and I understand it. I get it. And I was telling my friend that I really liked how the cops had their thought perspective, what was really in the car, and they had to use their best judgments. Because, you don't have X-ray vision to see in the car what they got. You have to make a judgment. You have to take it and sometimes react on that judgment. Doesn't always make it right. And believe it or not, when the cops were done killing Bonnie and Clyde, all of them in their own way looked disgusted that they had to brutally kill these people and not be able to just arrest them because, they took a chance, and albeit it was a very risky chance that they had to take guesswork on, but that's what happened. And as you can imagine, when Bonnie and Clyde are being brought into the Pennsylvania town, you have all these people swarming the car, taking things off Bonnie, taking things off Clyde, while just being vultures. All these people who idolize them all over America, whoever was there in Pennsylvania, just stripping them almost clean of their possessions or tossing their bodies around. I mean, it really was a madhouse, and you just had Manny Galt and Frank Hamer just looking over this like, my God, like, what is this circus? And you even have a reporter come in right after they've done this deed and say, Mr. Hamer, do you feel, how do you feel after this whole type of thing? And then you have, Frank Hamer just look at the reporter, just give him the stern look and walk away. And then Woody Harrelson, I told my friend, has a very awesome line, which my friend said, yeah, it was a great line too. And he basically, her Treasury Secretary, who I think suggested this, but Bob Ferguson is like thinking, oh, well, this is all me, the good plan all along, the ass-kissing governor of Texas at the time. And again, she's a Democrat. But, hey, that's what it goes through. And, I mean, and as you can imagine, people, they had the ending credits explaining what happened, showing the actual car, showing how many thousands of people showed up for Clyde Barrow and Bonnie Parker's funeral. what happened to Maney Galt and Frank Hamer. Maney Galt went back to the Texas Rangers when they were reinstated at the end of the film. It said in the little subtext. Frank Hamer just went home to his family and wife and retired again completely, not wanting to deal with it, which I couldn't blame him. So, again, I'm glad my friend showed me this movie. The Highwaymen is an awesome film. It's good length. It's 2 hours, 12 minutes. Good length. Great score by Thomas Newman. Great, creepy, melodic score. Sometimes heroically done when you have Hamer and Galt on screen. So it's really nicely done all the way through. And like I said, the one thing that I looked at with the critics in this movie that I hated was they're saying how this film can't hold a candle to Penn's film. I'm going to say that's the original one with Faye Dunaway and Warren Beatty and all that type of stuff. Or, they mentioned how this film just, comes off lackluster, which I disagree. I thought this was a well put together film. They say that this movie is terrible for cops shooting up people, in the midst of Black Lives Matter. To that I say, get the fuck over it. Different time period, different type of thing. And cops have been unjustly gone after for these last couple of years. Yes, there are crooked cops. Yes, there are some bad cops. But not every cop is like that. And again, if you paid attention to the movie, you would know how, again, in this film, the cops felt remorse and bad for what they did. They were sick to their stomachs that it had to get this far with Bonnie and Clyde. And again, they had to make a judgment call. Yes, they were brutally murdered and all they had were sandwiches in the car. But the cops didn't know that. They just see him reach for something. They reacted to it. That does happen. And yes, that has happened to innocent people. It doesn't make it right. It doesn't make it the best. But, a lot of times cops will feel terrible for doing these types of judgments like that. That's, again, what I love about what this movie showed is that the cops were human too. They weren't just sadistic, ruthless people like in the HBO Max version and the Warren Beatty, Faye Dunaway version. So again, I like how we get a different telling of this classic story that was a good, exciting, and engaging movie, and I loved watching with my friend. I loved The Highwaymen a lot. And that's all I can really say about it right now at this time without going into my usual spiels. But, just let me know what you guys thought of Highwaymen down below. Is it a movie you guys liked? Did you enjoy it? Did you enjoy what The Highwaymen did, what it was about, how we got to see the different perspective? Just let me know in the comments section, and I will come at you guys with another movie review again soon, alright? Okay. Deuces.